Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, my dear teachers. We're going to start now with our webinar. So I saw that some of you were interacting in the chat, but right now I'm going to disable this option so we can start with our webinar that I hope you find it useful and productive. Okay, I guess most of you know me. I'm Marta Jasmine Camargo Cruz. I have more than 13 years working in teaching English as a second language and more than 9 years implementing national projects in Latin America. Some recommendations that we will have in this webinar. Okay, you can see that I'm going to speak in English, but the presentation will be in Spanish for those of you who don't understand 100% English. You have the chance to read. Everything will be explained very clearly, so there will be a problem. We are going to interact a lot in this webinar, so we're going to share our opinions, experiences through the chat and the surveys. I really highly recommend you to please only have the window for the webinar. Please close Skype, no WhatsApp. We don't want any interruption during the session. Another recommendation is to please write down the questions that you may have during the webinar. As you know, at the end of the webinar, we will have some time to share, to ask those questions, and I will be very happy to answer most of them, what the time let us. The communication during the webinar, we're going to use the chat that some of you already started using, and surveys. That's going to be our two main ways of communication. And now, finishing with the recommendations and suggestions, I'm going to show you the topics that we're going to cover during this session. The first topic is an introduction to the concept of assessment and its importance in the learning process. Our second topic will be assessing speaking in our students. The third topic will be assessing writing, in our classrooms. The fourth topic is the steps you need to follow to enter the speaking and writing grades into the end of course matrix. The fifth topic that we're going to cover is the assessment tools in English discoveries and the teacher management system reports. And finally, our sixth topic will be how to improve learning and teaching through assessment for learning. So as you can see, our webinar is mainly focused on assessment. And let's see our first topic, introduction to assessment and its importance in the learning process. First of all, I want to give a definition, very clear definition about assessment. What do we do when we assess? What we actually do when we assess our students is that we measure the achievements of some objectives, of some goals proposed or established in a specific period of time. Okay, now we're going to talk about some types of assessment. So we have proficiency test, we have placement test, diagnostic test, and achievement test. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to give you some definitions and you are gonna try to match those definitions to these concepts. So here, I want you to read first because we're gonna do a survey, and I want you to get familiar to the concepts first, and then you will participate on the survey. So I'm gonna give you the definitions of those 4 types of assessment, of tests, and then you will gonna match. So A, which kind of assessment evaluates a learner's understanding of specific material which has been studied? B, identifies areas that students need to work on in order to improve their language proficiency. C, measures a learner's general level of the language, in this case English. And D, identifies a suitable level for students at the beginning of a course of study. Okay, so right now we're gonna do it as a survey. So you will see on your screen the definition, and then you're gonna choose the answer that you think is right. And I hope you're ready for this. Okay, so let's start with the first one. This test evaluates a learner's understanding of specific material which has been studied. Which test do you think it is? Number 1 is proficiency test. Number 2, placement test. Number 3, diagnostic test. And number 4, achievement test. Please read the definition and the type of exam that you think it is. All right, most of them are saying the achievement test. We are 11%. Okay, let's see. It measures our learners' understanding of specific material which has been studied. Okay, we're not talking about levels. It's not a pre-course test. So, okay, I'm gonna stop here. And we're gonna see for this first one, most of you, actually 22% of you said that the test that evaluates our learners' understanding of specific topics or materials that have been studied is the achievement test. Good, yeah, that's right. Let's move on to the second one. Let's go little by little. I know you have access to all of them, but we're going to do it little by little. All right? Now, the second one. Which tests identify those areas that students need to work on in order to improve their language proficiency? Number 1, proficiency test. Number 2, placement test. Number 3, diagnostic test. Right now you can start voting. So far, 20% of you have said that is the diagnostic test. And yeah, that's right. The diagnostic test is the one that identifies those areas in, that students need to work in order to improve their language proficiency. Let's go to number 3. These tests measures a learner's general level of language. And we have 2 options. We have the proficiency test and the placement test. Okay, some of you have already started voting. You can keep voting. All right. So 11% of you said that is the proficiency test, the one that measures the general level that a student has with the language. Great. And finally, we have, okay, the exam, the test that identifies a suitable level for students at the beginning of a course of study. Most of you said that it was the placement test, which is right. So what I wanted to show you here, it's about the assessment, the objective of each test that we have. Here I have the definitions and the corresponding test for you to read it and to know. So each test has its purpose. So that's what we need to know when we are assessing our students. What do we want to get from them? What do we want to assess? And how to do it. So the importance of assessment in the learning process can go like in 3 steps. Okay, the assessment should be a tool that helps us understand the student's reality or level or situation regarding the language. That needs to take us to a reflection. We need to know then what to do. So we need to make decisions. Sometimes we need to rearrange the activities. And we also need to look at the strengths that our students have, and we need to strengthen them, to boost those skills that they have developed. Because assessment is not only about the skills that they need to work on, because they are not good at that, but it's also to reinforce what their strengths. Okay, and after we make decisions, we kind of redefine the student, because the student should be the center of the learning process. So if we think about his situation, how he's interacting and how he's understanding the language, and then we make some changes or we establish some activities for them, then we will help the student, which is the goal in our task of teaching English. So in this way, the student, as I said, is the center of the learning process. And this is about the first topic, to talk about the assessment concept. We saw some definitions and the importance. With that, we are going to start now with our second topic, which is the assessing for speaking. All right? So we're going to be very practical with that you have contact with, and for us it's very important to know that you can manage, for example, the rubrics, assessment rubrics. So we're going to start with that, right? Checking the assessment rubrics. And I want to show you first a few things. I want to know, how familiar do you feel you are when using the rubrics. Okay, and this we're gonna do it as also as a survey. So I'm gonna open it here. You will read it first, okay, and then once you have read the question and the options, you're gonna choose one of the options that we have in here. So how comfortable you are with the rubrics. A, I know how to use it and I feel comfortable when assessing my students. B, I have some questions when it's time to assess my students. And C, I don't know how to use it. Okay, we're talking about the speaking and also the writing because we have two rubrics. So let's see. All right. Don't be shy, participate because I'm not going to say the names. So just be, feel comfortable to say, to give an answer. All right, few more seconds. So we're gonna stop and share the results. Okay, let's stop here and I'm gonna stop the voting now. And I'm sharing the results with you. So 70% of you said that you know how to use it and you feel comfortable using the rubrics. 28% of you said that you still have some questions when assessing the students, and 7% of you don't know how to use it, so don't worry because you will learn how to do it in here. That's one of the objectives of this webinar, to know how to use the rubrics. All right, so I stop here with our survey, and let's go back to our presentation. First, I'm going to describe the rubric for assessing speaking. Okay, so you have different columns. In the left column, you can see the assessment criteria. You see the 7 parameters that need to be taken into account when assessing the students. And then to the right, you find 2 columns with names when you are assessing a dialogue. So in one column, you write the name of one student, and the other column will be for the other student. And you have some numbers, some grades. These are the parameters, the assessment criteria that we have. So we have interaction, we have fluency, accuracy, we have grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and intonation. Okay, so when you are going to assess your students, you need to know in advance what you're going to assess. Okay. Now, for each parameter, there is a kind of context, a situation. For example, here in interaction, if the student understands the questions, if the student understands the questions when they are repeated, or the third option here is that the student has some difficulties when understanding the questions. The student needs repetition, that the other speaker asks several times the same questions and actually in different ways. So once you identify the context, what the student's situation, let's say, is, you need to score it. So you have number 3, when the student, for example, in this case, understands the questions. You give a score of 2 when the student needs some repetition or paraphrasing, when you need to ask the question in a different way. And you score 1 when the student has difficulties in understanding the questions. That this student needs a lot of repetition, and sometimes he doesn't understand the question at all. So now that we are familiar with the rubrics and you know how to use it, it's important to say that you have to choose only one score. Okay, can be 3, 2, or 1. Okay, so our next activity is that we're gonna assess 2 examples, 2 audios from students, and we're gonna take into account each one of the parameters that we have in the rubric for speaking, for assessing speaking. So what I'm gonna do here, and what I would like you to do, is if you have a piece of paper and a pen or somewhere to write down these scores, because at the end we want to to add and to see the score of this student, you can do it, and we're gonna do it as a survey too. Okay, we're gonna do it together. So the first thing that we're gonna assess is interaction. What is interaction? First of all, you need to understand what each one of these parameters mean. So I'm gonna give a definition of each one of these parameters, and then we are going to check the options that we have, and finally we're gonna give a score. Okay, so interaction. Interaction is a reciprocal action. Okay, it's when 2 or more people or things communicate with or react to each other. And here we have 3 aspects. This was the one I talked about, that the student understands the questions. The student understands the questions when needs a little bit of repetition. And the third one is when the student has difficulties in understanding the questions, and the student requires ongoing repetition and to be asked the same question in different ways. Let's go one by one, and then we will listen to the audio and we will try to grade this assessment that we have here, those odds. The next one is fluency. Fluency is the ability to speak, in this case, because it's also when writing, when we speak a language easily, well, and quickly, right? That is fluency. So we have here 3 contexts: that the student interacts, very easily, quickly, and well. The second one is that the student interacts, but making some pauses. It's not continuous conversation. And the third option is that the student interacts with difficulty. It's not easy. There's a lot of silence, and sometimes it's only words. Now let's go to accuracy. Accuracy is the fact of being exact or correct. Right? It's like if we have 3 situations. So the first one is that the student uses complete or full answers. Okay, not only words. The second one is that the student answers or communicates using only phrases. And the third one is like when the student communicates only using words. He doesn't connect, words. It's only words. What's your name, for example? Mario. No more. Now, let's move on to the next parameter, which is grammar. So, the first one is if the student uses the language structure correctly. The second option that we have is that the student sometimes uses the language correctly, the structure. And the third one is that sometimes or almost never the student uses the grammatical form of the language. Usually when we have those cases, we don't understand clearly what the student wants to say. The next one, the next parameter is vocabulary. So here we assess in three levels also. The first one is that the student uses a wide vocabulary, that he has a lot of words in that context, that he's not only using the ones that we give them as a clue or as part of helping them, but he extends his vocabulary. The second one is that he uses the basic vocabulary. So it's like when you give the student the activity and he's using the vocabulary, the words, the phrases that are there in the box, but he's not capable of using anything else. And the third one is when the vocabulary is very limited, when he hardly says something. He doesn't include like key vocabulary that we have studied in that unit, and he has troubles in communicating because he doesn't have all the knowledge regarding vocabulary. And the last parameter is pronunciation. Okay, pronunciation, of course, is the way he is speaking and how he's pronouncing the words correctly to be understood. So the first situation is that the student is understood when he says something. The second option that we have here is that most of the times we or his partners can understand what he's saying, not 100%, but let's say 80%. And the last option is that he is not understood, all right, that the pronunciation is not good and we cannot understand what he's saying. So right now I'm gonna open here the files that we're gonna listen to. This is the first first audio that we have here. So please listen to it and take into account all these parameters. So I'm gonna open the survey because now we have defined what each one of these parameters mean. We're going to assess. We're gonna do it together. And let me open it, please. Okay. In this one, you will find the, all the parameters: interaction, fluency, accuracy, grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and intonation. So let's listen to our first student, and then you will start assessing from 3 to 1. It takes a little bit because it's a recording, so.
I live in Colocoto. I am like a house. I live with your family. Yes, I like become specific.
Okay, so you heard our first audio. You have all of the assessment criteria on the window. You can start voting. I know sometimes it's difficult, but I'm gonna repeat it repeat the audio for you to also check pronunciation, intonation. I want you to take into account grammar, vocabulary, all the aspects that we have in here. So let's play it again, and you can keep grading.
I live in Colcoto. I am like a house. I live with your family. Yes, I like become specific.
Okay. So let's assess this. I hope you checked all the aspects. Okay, we have answers for all of them, so I'm going to stop here the voting, and I'm going to share the results with you so we can start grading this audio. Interaction. Well, in this case, we see that there is a student talking. It's not in a conversation, but when we have those kind of assessment is when you give the student the instructions and he's capable of understanding what you're saying, and he is actually answering or following the instructions that you are giving. So most of you said that in interaction this student gets a 1. Okay, that he has some difficulties when understanding the question, and he requires continuously or ongoing repetition. We're gonna do it like, one by one, and then we will add all these scores, and we will give the final grade. Now, fluency. Some of you said that he interacts easily and quickly. Most of you chose number 2, that he interacts making some pauses. Yeah, it's I can see that it's clear that he needs to think and he takes his time to continue with the conversation. So definitely he's making some pauses. And for some of you, he interacts with difficulty. Yeah, sometimes he's not clear of what he wants to say. He doesn't know how to express his ideas. I would say, yeah, let's do number 2, because most of you chose number 2. Now let's go to accuracy. Accuracy, remember, that is the fact of being exact or correct. If he was asked to describe where he lives, who he lives with, then he needs to give us that kind of information. Only 2% of you said number 3, that he uses complete sentences. Number 2, that he's using only phrases. And actually it was most of you who voted for that option, 20%. And 5% chose number 1, that he gives answers only by giving words, single words. I would agree to those of you who said number 2. Yeah, this one is kind of tricky because sometimes he tries to use complete sentences and not only phrases. So let's do what most of you said, which is number 2. Now let's move on to grammar. He uses the structure, language structure, correctly. 5% of you said that he got a 3. 11% said that sometimes he uses the structures correctly, and rarely he uses the structures correctly. In this case, we can see that he is giving sentences following subject, verb, and complement. So he's actually using the structures correctly. However, the pronunciation is not good, the fluency, but in terms of grammar, he understands the grammar. So I will go for a 3. Most of you said 2. So definitely not 1 because he is using the structure and not just few times. He's actually in his speech, he's using the structure. Now let's go to vocabulary, and this is something that we need to clarify. You know, that's why you have different parameters, so you don't mix pronunciation with grammar. You don't mix interaction with accuracy. All right, it's separate. Now let's see vocabulary. If 2% of you said that he uses wide vocabulary, 13% said he uses basic vocabulary, and 6% said that the vocabulary is very limited. So, yeah, he uses basic vocabulary. You know, he's not only giving phrases. I live in a house. I live with my family. He tries to expand, but I would definitely go between 1 and 2 because sometimes it's very limited. You know, if you see the box of, you know, when we give them the exams, and there is a help box with vocabulary, with phrases that they can use, some of those students limit themselves to use only those words. So I would definitely go for a 2 or 1, right? Depending, you need to see the text, the handout that you give them, and see if he's using only the words that are there or if he's expanding the vocabulary. So let's go for 2. Pronunciation. 4% says that they understood what he's saying. 12% of you said that most of the times he makes himself clear, understood, and 2% said that they don't understand what he's saying. If you see here, if you listen to the audio and you listen to the student, most of the time you understand what he's saying. However, there are few words that you will need to repeat, you know, the audio, or if you are in the conversation, you know, face to face as you do the exams, you won't understand. So I would definitely also would say that most of the times I can understand what he's saying. So that's number 2. We need to see that, okay? We cannot be so like stubborn, let's say it like that, and say, no, I don't understand anything. Just because I didn't understand a word, then I couldn't understand anything. I did understand what he said, you know? So most of the times, if you understand everything or most of the things that he wants to say, you go for 2 or 3. 1 is when it's absolutely unclear and you don't understand a word. And the last one is intonation. So intonation, remember that when I talk about intonation, is the sound changes produced by the rise and the fall of the voice when I speak, especially when this has an effect on the meaning of what I want to say. Okay, so it's like if it's a question, if it's that I want to emphasize the subject, or if I want to emphasize the verb, or if I want to emphasize the object, because that's the most important thing in that sentence. That is intonation. So 2% of you said that the intonation is accurate when he's making a statement or a question. 7% of you, wow, said that it's most of the times it's accurate, and 7% also said that there is no intonation. There's no distinction if he's asking, if he's answering, if he wants to emphasize the place where he lives, the people he lives with. So there is no, it's very flat. I would also go for number 1. Okay, and that's how we assess our students. All right, taking into account each one of these parameters, but one by one. All right, so let's see, this student had a 12 score, 12 points over 20. Not bad, but he can improve. Okay, let's stop here. And now let's go to another. We're gonna check another audio. This one is a little bit longer than the previous one. So we're gonna, please pay attention. So we're gonna listen to it only once. Okay. And here it is.
I prefer using a tablet because it's more versatile. One reason I prefer using a tablet is because it's not too heavy. One of the advantages of having tablet is the battery life. On the other hand, a disadvantage is the storage because it's not enough for me.
Okay, that was the second audio. You have access now to the poll with each one of the parameters. Please start assessing this one. Okay, in this audio, the student was asked to talk about his preferences over a laptop and a tablet. So, in interaction, he understood the instruction, and he started talking about the difference and the preferences. So I would say that he understands the questions. So in interaction, let's give him a 3. Now, fluency. What do you think? He interacts easily and quickly? What score would you give him? Or he interacts making some pauses, or it's difficult for him to interact? Most of you said that he interacts making some pauses. Yeah. Now, accuracy. He uses complete answers. He only uses phrases, or he only uses words. If we hear this student, he gives complete answers. So definitely his score will be 3. Grammar. Let's see how he uses the grammar. Let's listen to him again one more time.
I prefer using a tablet because it's more versatile. One reason I prefer using a tablet is because it's not too heavy. One of the advantages of having tablet is the battery life. On the other hand, a disadvantage is the storage because it's not enough for me.
Okay. In here we see that the student most of the times uses the structure correctly. Sometimes he has some problems with spelling. So, you know, instead of using plural, he uses singular. So let's say that most of the times I will give him a 2 as well, as most of you said. Vocabulary. He uses a wide vocabulary variety. He only uses basic vocabulary, or it's very limited. I think he's not only expressing his opinion. I mean, like to say I prefer tablet, but he's giving reasons, and he's using explanations why he prefers tablet over the laptop. So I would say he can go in a range of 3 or 2. Because of you, most of you said 2, let's put number 2. But definitely those of you who said 3, I also agree with you. And okay, let's go to pronunciation. What he says is understood. Most of the times I understand what he's saying, and you don't understand anything. Okay, so this student, although you know his intonation, and that's the last parameter that we have, has to do with that, with intonation, like raising and lowering the voice is not the best, but you can understand what he's saying, which is the purpose of pronunciation. So I would definitely go for number 3. Those that said 2, I think it's also okay, because you know maybe most of the times you couldn't understand what he was saying, but the student is actually very clear. And the last one, that you don't understand what he's saying, maybe, you know, okay. So let's give him a score of 3 in that one. And intonation. So he gives a good intonation. He raises the voice or not when he wants to emphasize a word. So you say that always that he has a good intonation. I would give him a score of 2 as well. I will agree with the ones that said that almost always he makes the right intonation. Only few of you said that his intonation wasn't the best one, that it was kind of flat. You couldn't see the difference between a word or what he wanted to reinforce, nothing. So let's go for number 2. Okay, let's see. He got a score of 17. So we have a good result here. Now I'm going to stop end voting here, and let's move on to, okay, here we have with that we added, you know, and we have this score. Okay, now let's move on to our third topic that has to do with assessing writing. In assessing writing, we also have the rubrics for assessing writing. On the left column, we can see the assessment criteria. In this case, we only have 5 parameters. And on the right column, we have the scores. So here we have the parameters are the following: information, ideas, vocabulary, structure of language, and spelling. We're going to go one by one, and I'm going to explain how each one works. So we also have three possible contexts or situations that we need to see when we are assessing one of those writing assignments that our students give us. So we're going to have two examples also of writing assignments, and this one was taken from Unit 11 going out. So here the instruction is, Richard is writing a note to Penny next day in class. Read the note and help Penny answer it. So this is the note that Richard wrote. Dear Penny, do you want to be my girlfriend? Can you meet me today at the Mexican restaurant on Spring Street at 1:30 p.m.? Love, Richard. So let's see what one of the examples that one of our students gave. So here you have on the screen, you can see the first text, and it says, Dear Richard, yes, I like you much. I cannot at 1:30 because has class until 3. We can meet at 4 at that restaurant. Love, Penny. We're going to go one by one, and we will do it again as a survey. So please take a look to this this example, and we're gonna start assessing. Information. The student gives relevant information. Number 3. Okay, score 3. Score 2. The information that the student gives is very limited or limited, and 1, it's the information is not relevant at all. Ideas. Now, the first situation that we have is that the ideas are well structured. Second, the ideas are expounded, presented in phrases. They're not complete answers. And the ideas are said or presented just in words. You have a score in front of each one of these parameters. Now let's go to vocabulary. The student uses a relevant vocabulary, relevant to the context. You know that the student is not going somewhere else. It's about what he's been asked to do. The second one, that the vocabulary is not really relevant to the context. And the third one is that the vocabulary that the student used is not relevant at all. It's not close to the context. The following is the structure of the language. So let's start with the highest score, that is 3. There are few mistakes in the, let's say, in the word order, in the use of pronouns, verbs, conjugations, and use of plurals. The second option that we have is that there are many mistakes in all those aspects. Pronouns, verbs, plurals, in word order, you know, adjectives and adverbs sometimes. And the last one is that there are many mistakes in the structure, okay, in the word order, in pronouns, in verbs. And the last one is the spelling. There are few mistakes when talking about spelling, punctuation, and the use of capital letters. The second context that we have is that there are many mistakes regarding spelling, punctuation, or capitalization. And the third one is that there are many, I mean, the whole text, let's say out of 3 words, 2 are a mistake. Okay, so that's how we're going to assess this test, this writing assignment that our student did. So please take a look, and we're gonna do survey. Okay, meanwhile I'm opening here. So you have the text. Please select in each one of those parameters: information, ideas, vocabulary, language structure, and spelling. All right. Keep voting, please. So we can go to the second writing assignment. Okay, let's start with this one. I'm going to take the highest scores, but I'm going to also give you the explanation. So information. Most of you said that the information is limited. Yeah. I would go also between 3 and 2 because it's relevant. It has to do with the student was asked to do, but in a way it's just limited. Yeah, this student doesn't expand, doesn't do much, so you can go for 3 or 2. Ideas are well structured, and ideas are expressed in phrases. Vocabulary. Most of you are saying that the vocabulary is not relevant to the context. I wouldn't agree with that at all. I mean, 100%, because I think the vocabulary that the student is using is relevant to that context. The student was asked to write a note about meeting Richard in a restaurant at a specific time. So please do not confuse vocabulary with grammar, with the structure of language, with ideas, because it's what the student is using, the vocabulary. Structure. There are a few mistakes. Some of you said that there are many mistakes. And let's go to spelling. Spelling, you have that there are many mistakes regarding spelling. So let's stop here and voting. That was, what I was checking here, your answers. Once you have selected a score in each parameter, you sum and you add all those numbers, and you have the final grade. So let's see Dear Richard, yes, what? I like you much. It's a wrong expression, I like you very much, or I really like you. I cannot not what? There is a missing verb, so that is affecting the language structure. At 1:30 because has class until 3. Okay, remember here the pronoun is missing. So we don't have good grammar. We are now missing a verb here, missing a pronoun. So in just in one sentence. So that's something that we need to take into account. We can meet at 4 at that restaurant. Okay, here restaurant with a capital letter, that doesn't need to be there. So definitely this student kept the information, also the ideas. The student is giving an order. Instead of saying I like you very much or I really like you, she's saying something else, but it has a structure. The problem here was mainly with grammar and spelling. Not spelling, sorry. With with grammar, most of it, and let's see here. Sorry about this. I'm gonna check again. Okay, so here, information. She asked. She wrote what she was asked. Ideas, also. The ideas were there, were not perfect, but were clear. Vocabulary, kind of, it was relevant. Okay. The problem was here with the language structure and spelling. Yeah. Now let's move on to our second text. And here you have on the screen the second example. Dear Richard, you surprised me with your message. For me, it's good to meet with you today at 1:30 at Mexican restaurant. We can tell about that you want to be my boyfriend. There. Love, Penny. Okay, so if we look at this one in terms of information, ideas, vocabulary, language structure, and spelling, what would you say? What would be your score for this one? Please take a look while I open the survey. All right, here it is. So please start voting. Take a look. Mix information with ideas, with vocabulary. Just focus on each parameters. Each one of these parameters. Okay, let's start checking this so we can move on with our next topic. And most of you say that the information is relevant, so you give 3, which I agree. Ideas. Some of you said, yeah, the ideas are presented in phrases, not well structured. Vocabulary. The student uses relevant vocabulary, and then some of you said that it's not really relevant. The language structure. We have a tie here. There are a few words, a few mistakes in the words, in the pronouns, in using the verbs. So I would definitely go with number 2, that there are many mistakes, because it was a very, not that short, but it wasn't really long. However, the main problem in this one was the spelling. Now, the student used or had problems with the spelling. So this is how you assess a writing assignment. That you need to see if the ideas are relevant to what the student was asked to do, the information, and don't mix. All right, that's why you have this the rubric specifying 5 parameters, and you have a score for each one of them. And then once you have selected each score, then you sum those scores, and you have the final grade for each one of the writing assignments of your students. Okay, Now let's move on to our fourth topic, which has to do with the process of or the steps to enter the speaking and writing grades into the end of course metrics. Okay, to do that, you need to log in into the platform, your username, password, and you go to the teacher's corner. Once you are there, you need to go to assessment. Please note that these two grades, speaking and writing, have to be entered manually, right? That's why we're doing this process. The platform doesn't give it automatically. So you click on speaking and writing scores. Okay, so assessment, speaking and writing scores. Then you select the class and the term. Once you have done that, you click on Go. The platform will display the list of students in that class, and you will have the columns for speaking and writing. So based on what you did, with the rubrics that you assessed your students both in speaking and writing, you enter the grades manually here to the platform. Once you have done that, please click on Save. So the platform keeps the progress, keeps what you have entered. If you don't click Save, you won't have anything. You will have to do it again. So don't forget that step, please. And here, what you can see on the screen is the term report. Okay, is that the one that shows you the scores for listening, speaking, reading, writing, and the exam. And the platform generates the final grade, but only if you have entered the scores for reading, for speaking, and writing, right? So please do it. Be very careful. Save that information so you won't lose it, and your student will get a bad score because the scores were not entered properly. Okay, now let's move on to our fifth topic, which has to do with the assessment tools in the platform English Discoveries and the Teacher Management System, or TMS. Okay, so in the platform, we have some assessment tools for the student to use and for the teacher. So for the student, the students have the options of also assessing their progress. How? By the practice sections that we have in each unit, in each lesson, and the results or the grades of the unit tests. And for us, for teachers, the assessment tool that we have are the TMS reports. So, students, we have practice activities. So, for example, here what you see on the screen is an activity from the practice. You see, we have 3 steps: explore, practice, test, not for speaking. But here the student, once he has explored on the explore, now the answers for of the activity, the student can click on check answer, and the platform will show him which answers were correct and which were not. So the student can do it again. He can click on clear, check again, and try to improve. So this is a way of self-assessment. Okay, I am a student, I'm checking what my mistakes were, and then I will try to do it again. You can recommend them to go to explore in these cases and do the practice. Maybe there was something in explore that wasn't clear for them. So this is one way. The other way is by looking at the results, the grades of the tests that are in the lessons. So again, you can see, the students can see which answers were correct and which were not. So the platform gives a score. It's automatically, so the student can see if he did well, if he needs more practice, or if it was excellent. In this case, okay, it was good. And the recommendation that the platform gives is that if the student wants to improve your score, then he should go back to Explore and do the passage or the audio or the conversation, what the activity that was in Explore. He has to do it again and then go to test. Okay, it's always recommended that the student goes back and tries to understand where the mistake was. Okay, it's not only, okay, so I'll take the test again and I'll take the test again, but without knowing. So please, when you have your students in the lab and you see this situation, ask them to go back and try to find the mistake, because that's how we learn from mistakes, when we look back and we see where we went wrong. All right, now let's move on to the TMS reports. All right, so we have two kinds of reports: the specific report and general reports. In specific reports, we have the student progress, and in general reports, we have the other ones: class completion, class test scores, class summary, unit overview, time on task, and term report. I'm going to explain each one of them further on. So let's continue here. Now, how can we access to the reports in the platform? Again, everything that has to do with the management of the classes is in Teacher's Corner. So you always want to go there. You go there to enter the grades and also to access the reports. So you go to reports when you're there, and then you click on course reports. Those are the relevance for you, the ones that you want to check. Once you have selected course reports, the platform will ask you for this information. Select the report. Okay, so you need to see which report you're going to check. If it's class completion, or if you want to check the report of a specific student, then you click on student's progress. Then you select the class that you want to check. If it's student progress, you need to select the student and then click go, because it's the specific report that the platform provides you. Or if you only want to see the report of a class, you select the class and click on go. And in that way, you have access to the reports. And this one leads us to our last topic, which is how to improve learning and teaching through assessment for learning. We need to take into account that assessment is not only to give the student a grade. That is an important part, crucial part in the learning process. We learn from our mistakes. So again, and I want to emphasize that the platform is not only for for us, for teachers, to see reports, but the student also, they can also access parts of the platform and track their progress, track if they're learning, what are their, their strengths, their weaknesses. So we need to emphasize that, and also, make our students responsible for their learning process and how the assessment that they can do in the platform can help them improve. Okay. So the students have access to a report, to their report in the platform when they go to My Progress. If you see here, this is the students session. So to the right part of the screen, you see the feature My Progress. And we're going to do this. We're going to do a poll because I want to know if your students know if they use this part, this tool that the platform has. So I'm going to open this poll and you're going to give me your opinion if they're using the platform, the report. So here we have. Do your students know or use this resource, this A, most of the times. B, almost never. C, they don't know that they have this tool. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's good. Happy to know. Okay, keep voting, please, because this is very important for us to know. Okay, I'm gonna stop here the voting. Thank you very much for your participation here, and I'm gonna share the results with you. Okay, so 46% of you said that most of the students use this tool. 2% said that almost never, and 4% said that they don't even know that they have this tool, this resource in the platform. So I would really recommend you to tell students also to check their progress. Okay, it's a way of motivating them, of helping them track their own progress, to see how they're doing, and that helps them be more independent in the learning process. So what information is there in that report? What information can they see in that report? Well, they see, you can see on the left, the unit, then completion, that is how much of the unit I have done, I have worked on. So if you put on the mouse there, the platform will show you the percentage. For example, here 0, here could be 30%. The next column shows me the test scores. So it's the average test score that I have in each one of the units. Comments, these are provided by the platform. All right. So here, the platform, for example, in this case, had an excellent, because the grade was 100. And class completion has to do with the percentage of the whole course that has been assigned to this student. So this one, class completion, takes into account all the units, not one by one like here, that is completion. This one is the whole class. Okay, so that is the information that the student has access to. As I said, the percentage that what he has done or not. If he has skipped units, for example, here you see that the student didn't do the first unit, but he went to the second, he didn't finish, jumped to the next one, and like that. So it also gives a student a sense of order. What parts of the platform I'm not doing? What am I missing? The grades and the feedback given by the platform. And now let's go to a question. Because you know, students can see the report, but they don't see the importance or how this report can help me in my learning process. So my question for you, and I want you to think that you are a student and answer these questions. How can I do that the information provided by this report help me improve my learning process? And for this, I'm gonna enable the chat so you can participate on the chat. Okay, so here you have it ready. The chat is open, so please start sharing your experiences or your opinions about the reports. How can I make this information useful? All right, the chat is available now, so please share your opinions. All right. People are writing, and I'm waiting here to read what you have to say. I'm a student, and I want to know how this report can help me in my learning process. How a report can help me. What do you think? You're very shy today. Okay. Questions, please, at the end. This kind of report helps students to improve and complete the activities. Yeah, good. Check every session of class. Good. It helps to students to improve their knowledge, to reinforce the topic. Yeah, very good. Because if I know that I see a low score, then it shows me that I need to do something about that, no? It's important because we can know how they are learning, see their advance and complete and correct their mistakes, take into account their weaknesses to reinforce topics. This report helped me so much. Okay, that's good. It helped me to know my progress. Maybe I will realize that can help me improve my English. The student can see the way they're improving, and they can make necessary changes to get better. They can even try again for work best. Good. It helps students to follow an order according with what they have what they're learning, and to review or reinforce new vocabulary. Okay, the students start thinking their worth. Reports will help students to know in which exercise units they need more practice to improve. Very good. I'm going to read two more and we will continue. Okay, the students work best. It allows me to readjust certain methodologies on my progress. Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate your participations. Right now I'm gonna disable the chat. Thank you very much for your participation. So you see, it's not only a report is not only giving us numbers just to enter the, to our metrics and to give a final grade to students. It also helps us look for more things, and if you see here, the report the student has access to, it's not only giving them numbers, because we also care about the process, and the process means that I'm completing the units, that I'm following an order, that if I have a bad score, I can go back and do it again, and try again, and to do the explore and the practice again, because the objective is to learn. And this is how evaluation, assessment, correcting mistakes need to be taken, okay? For one goal, to improve the learning process. It's not only to give a number. And that's one of the, the most important aspects in assessment. So, some of the benefits that assessment implies for learning are the following. As most of you said, to know how important it is to follow an order in the course syllabus, the topics, because the student, when he's following the order, can build the knowledge in a coherent way. Also, take into account that in the platform, the topics go from something easy, but it's getting harder and harder and harder, and it's mixing more topics, more vocabulary. So if a student is jumping from one unit, let's say from unit 1 to unit 6, then he's missing a lot. So that's how important it is for students to follow the order, to see when they check their report, to see that they are doing their activities, their units in order, and they do not pass to the next one until they finish the previous one. All right, another benefit is to consolidate and expand topics. Remember that the units here are built with sequence, with topic sequence. So we go from something simple, but we are adding more things, more grammar that is more advanced, even in the first levels. So it's also important that the topics are checked again, that the platform is also works in a, let's say, in a cycle, because I study something, but let's say in unit 4, then I reinforce that. So I'm building my knowledge. Okay, another benefit that we have, taking into account the assessment for learning, is that I can improve the way I learn in the face-to-face sessions. Why? Because we have the topics are connected. What you do in the face-to-face session, it's something that you continue in the lab session. So it's not disconnected. Everything goes together. And if I know what I did on the computer, then I have more chances to participate and to be more active in the face-to-face session. Another benefit is that by looking at my report, I can identify those skills that I need to work more. Okay, the skills that require more of my attention, that I need to work harder, that I need to maybe have additional material to expand and to study. And also, as I was saying, assessment is not only to say what was wrong, but it's also to say the strengths and the skills that the students are good at. So if I'm good at something, we need to reinforce that, right? If we have students that are very they are not good in listening, but they're good in writing or in reading, then we also have to reinforce them and to make them feel that they can do it. So they feel motivated and they just don't think that because I'm not good in listening, then I don't know English, I cannot study, I cannot learn. All right? We need to emphasize those things and make students know that they can take what is good, what they're good at, and study from there. Okay, so again, here I'm showing you the practice session of one of the activities in one of the units. Important for you, when you have your students in the lab, ask them to check the answers, not only to do exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 6 just to complete, but to make sure that I'm really learning. How can I see that? By checking answers, by doing it again, by going back to explore, checking again, clear again, and that way I can understand where the problem was and how I can solve it. And again, to read the feedback given by the platform, they can also, click on the questions or the answers that they were wrong and see the mistake. What was the mistake? But the important thing is that they analyze also their reports, their scores, and they know where the problem was. And now that you know those, those benefits that the platform provides students, how do you think the students benefit from those resources, taking into account everything, the grades, the completion, the option that they have of clearing the activity and doing it again, of practicing a lot? So please, let's share your opinions here also in the chat. Now the chat is available, so I would like to know, how do you think now as a teacher? You are teachers. In the previous one, you were students. Now, as a teacher, your students benefit from those resources, from those tools that the platform has, from the practice section, from the tests, checking answers. What is the benefit? All right. Do easily their work, improve your pronunciation, benefit about writing and listening. This is really important what you are saying. The students work best. They learn to use the 4 skills. Very good. Practice the listening. It let the students know how much he learned and what topics must practice more. Connect with the language. Can learn English practice. learn to pronunciation better, more practice the speaking, they improve their English vocabulary, grammar, and so on. Her or his learning is much better. Okay. Learning is much better. Practice their abilities. They are involved in all the skills. The students can improve their skills. I suppose they're active their communicative skills. The students build its own knowledge. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm gonna stop right here. Okay, a few more, and then we move on. More activities to practice for the student. Learn much more things. All the skills is most important for you. Pronunciation, more practice, speak and vocabulary. They connect with real language. They can review it as many times as they want to or need. More likes. His or her learning more capabilities. More active in the platform. Relevant data to know that my students progress. I can improve my teaching to manage their class. Very good. And get the best results. Learning best. They can help them in listening, writing, more vocabulary, full activities, more pronunciation. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Sorry if I disable the chat right now. It's very important what you are saying, and you're totally right. And something that I want to point out is that, yeah, they do have opportunity of practicing all 4 skills. And that is something that, you know, helps them and motivates them, because some of them are good at some skills and they want to practice those skills. Some of them want to improve or want to work more on their weaknesses. So they go to those skills and practice. So I'm working, as a student, I'm working directly with the computer. I can repeat as many times as I need or I want, as one of you said. I can choose which skill I want to work more. If it's listening, and also I want to point out here the grammar part, okay? Because remember that our lessons, the face-to-face sessions, are mainly communicative, okay? We want students to produce, yeah, to speak and to listen. We don't want to emphasize our face-to-face lessons on grammar. To spend 45 minutes explaining rules, I mean, it's something that we can give, you know, to the platform. Only if we have a question that our students, we can see that all of them or most of them don't understand something, then we have to explain something, but not to have 45 minutes for grammar. So in the platform, they do have the opportunity of working on grammar independently. Okay, so one student can be working on grammar more, but the other one needs to reinforce the speaking. So yeah, that gives us a lot of flexibility, and to us and to our students. So we both benefit from the platform and all the resources that it has. Once I know my mistakes, once I know what I need to work on more, then I spend more time in working on those things. So thank you very much for your comments. They were really brilliant. So I'm going to give you some of the benefits that we have and that you mentioned also. So this will be like a kind of summary. So I give a detailed report from the course. I can identify my strengths and my weaknesses, me as a student and also me as a teacher. The student can also check what the platform feedback is about. Okay, what do I need to do? Here, for example, try to improve your score. How can you improve your score? Well, going back to explore, practice, and taking the test again. And here, it has to do with this. I can go back. As most of you said in the previous chat, they have the opportunity of going back and doing the activities again. So that is very important for the students. Now, let's work on the TMS reports, all right, and how they impact the learning and the teaching process. Okay, remember, it's not only giving me a number. I have pedagogical rationale behind all of and each one of these reports. So we start with the student progress. That is the specific report, the most specific report that the platform gives you as a teacher. So you have the report here, okay, of this student, and it's gonna show you the completion, the test score, the last time the student entered the platform. That's also important because we need to see that the learning process is continuously going on. It's not that 1 week I did something and 2 weeks after I did something else. No, we need to check, and this is also good for us to know. The average and the times taken. How many times I have taken or the student has taken a test. So for example, let's look at this one. When I see this report, okay, I have my student and I'm looking his report, I see that in the listening section, he skipped the explore. He did 50% of the practice, but then he went to the test. And guess what? He got a bad score. So we need to recommend, we need to take that information and try to make it, useful for students. So for example, if I have a student like this, I would say, please follow the order. Please first do the explore, get to know what the unit is about, what this lesson is about, then do the practice, and finally go to the test. Don't start with the test. Now this one. The average test score is low. Here, for example, we see that is 40, and that's why it's not completed here, because the student didn't pass the test. So we need to see. Okay, so for example, the student in reading, I can check all the lessons, the units, and see if in reading he has a problem. If all the tests in reading have a low score. And from there, I can provide the student with some possibilities on how to improve reading, for example, or how to improve listening until they master this skill, or they work on that one more. Another situation that sometimes we face is that students have no progress. So we need to see why the student is not working on the platform. For us, because it's a blended environment, you have your students there in face-to-face sessions, it's a little bit easier to track their report and to talk to them. What is going on? Why haven't you done anything in the platform? We also need to look at that. Okay. What can you see in this report? Okay, please take a look to all of the information given by this report. And I'm gonna also open the chat, and you're gonna share what you see in this report. Everything that you see, please. So let's, I'm gonna enable the chat for you. Okay. and tell us with us what can you see in this report. Apart from, that the student has completed all units. Okay, please start. The order. I think you should improve the pronunciation by reading with them. Likewise, I need to learn phonetics English. I observed that the student completed all the unit in a better way. Excellent, good, advanced. The student tried very many times. Yes, the student completed all the steps and practiced with them. As a result, he got good scores. Students improved their scores through several attempts. The order, progress students. Times the student gave many times. I guess, okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna stop here so we can continue. Okay, now you're practicing more, and I like that. This report shows students complete all the units with high scores, good level, name of the unit, completion. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna disable right now here the chat. Thank you for the participation. And yeah, what we can see here is absolutely true, that the student completed all the units, that the scores were high. We see a sequence, the times that he entered the platform and did this unit. But we also see the times that he has taken the tests. So, for example, in some it was 6 times, but here we see that it was 40. What do you think a report like this could mean when a student is taking a test several times? You as a teacher, what can you identify? What can tell you, if you see a report like this? Okay, the chat is on, it's available now. So what do you think happened there? Is it because he liked the test very much and he wanted to do it all over and over and over again? He has a difficulty in reading. It's difficult to the student. It's important, all the information. All right. Understand student tried many times to improve. The student learns from mistakes and improves their learning process. Understand, get a good score. The student isn't learning the topic, they need help. I can see that this student tried again and again and didn't give up, never until getting 100. Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'm gonna stop here the chat because I guess you have given all the possible answers in this question. Yeah, so one thing that it can show us is that the topic was difficult for the student, so he had to do it again and again and again until he got a good score. Another reason, yeah, is that the student wanted to get a good score, so he did it many times. So we need to identify, we need to see, if this student, for example, is good at reading or if he has troubles. If it's any other skill, we need to identify and also help him and provide him with tools how to improve that skill. Great. Another thing that we can suggest our students is to ask them to finish one unit before they move on to the next one, and so on. Again, because the topics will be more consolidated, they can learn it faster. All right. Now let's go to the class completion report. This is a general report that can give us in one glance, in one look, you can see what students are working, which ones haven't started, which ones are skipping units, and from there you can make decisions on how to help them follow the order. And here, talking about the order, there is a poll. In your classes, do your students follow the order, the topics that they are supposed to be in Unit 5? Are all of them or most of them following that? So I want to open the poll. So please read the options. Do they follow the same order? Most of them, B, 50% of them, and C, each student works at their own pace. Okay. I'm glad that most of you are saying that most of them are following the order. There is a tie between 50% and each one does whatever they want. All right, I'm going to stop here. Great. Thank you for voting. All right, so 27% of you said that most of the students follow the order. Great. Good for them and good for you, because it makes your work easier. 50% of them, and each one works at their own pace. It's a little bit complicated, not only for you as a teacher, because you kind of need to be jumping from one topic to another if they have questions, but also for students. So I'm happy that most of you are saying that most of the students are working, following the order. Yeah, as I said, it's important because, when you have your classes, you want your students to have the same topics, that to cover the same thing, so we will see why it's important to keep the order in our classes. Another report is the unit overview. Okay, here it gives you also the percentage of progress that is done in each unit. Those are the words that you use the most, and I'm going to explain some benefits that we have when following the order. That the students, first of all, have a rhythm, like uniform, right? They're not jumping. So this leads me to the next one, to the next benefit, that they can do the activities in the face-to-face lessons and also in the computer, because everything goes together. What I do in the face-to-face class has an impact on the computer lab, and again in the face-to-face. It's a cycle. So if my students are following the same order, I can use the same handouts and explain some things about that topic, and they can all work because they understand where we're going, what they need to practice, and what they need to learn better. Also, if there are questions, you can solve those questions, you can solve those problems, because they're talking about the same topic, not one that is talking about simple past and the other one is past progressive. Yeah, for you and for them, it will be easier and more clear. And the topic that you are reviewing, they are covering the class, is learned better it gets consolidated better. Okay, another report is the time on task, that it also, has to do here, seeing how much time a student spent in a unit and how much he spent in another unit. If it's like a lot of time to complete one unit, maybe the student is having a trouble there with something. So that's the importance of this report. If it's, if the student completes the unit in, let's say, 20 minutes, then you will say, okay, and the scores are good. You can say, okay, this student maybe needs extra material and higher because it's a fast learner. So you need to look at the results on those reports and provide students with solutions and activities. That's why we come back here to this one. That is that we check, we look at the reports, we do reflection, then we make decisions, when we have fast, slow learners, how to manage, how to change the activities, and then, think about the student, that the student is the center of the learning process. So, in summary, okay, summarizing all this session, we saw different types of assessment and the importance in the learning, how assessment is important in learning process, how to evaluate, how to assess, how to check, and how to grade speaking and writing skills using the rubrics. We also covered how to enter the grades into the end of course metrics. We saw some assessment tools that the platform has both for students and for us teachers. And finally, we saw how the information provided by the reports given by the platform can help us and help our students improve the learning process. All right, and with this we have covered all the topics of the webinar. Anyways, you have questions, please remember that you have support, you have these emails that you have on the screen and the call center. You can always call the call center and ask not only technical issues or administrative things, but also pedagogical aspects that you want to learn something. So please feel free to call. It's free. If it's free, it's for me. So you can call anytime and they will answer your questions. Well, I don't know if anytime or if they have a specified schedule, but you can call. At the end of this webinar, I will send you a survey about the webinar. So please fill it out and send it to us, because it's very important for us to know what you think about the webinar and how we can improve. Okay, and now it's time for questions. So we will have some minutes for for questions that you might have from the topics that we covered in the webinar only. All right, we're not going to talk about anything else, only about topics is the chat is available now. Thank you, Gloria. Wilson, thank you very much for your participation. It was really, it makes a difference. Okay, please specify the question so I can understand. Okay, how much is the score about the test in the lab? If I'm wrong, okay, if I remember well, it was 20. Okay, how to evaluate mute deaf students? With these students, we need to plan different strategies. We need to do writing and reading. Okay, we cannot ask them to speak or to give us an answer of what they listen to. So it's reading and writing. What happens to students if students are new? We need to try to make them, get to the topic that we are covering. If they had online access, they could work on their own in the platform and work and study the topics that are left behind. Okay, what else? When you talk about give students tools, please, for example, what kind of tools? I was talking about, Roxana, I was talking about the assessment tools. So, for example, if we see that a student is struggling with reading, we need to look for ways of making them read better to improve the reading. This, of course, this can be another webinar, how to improve each skill. For reading, we can start with fragments, a lot of comprehension questions to make sure that they understand the vocabulary, and little by little giving them the more complex texts, also to use that the platform has, like to listen to the fragment, hear it again, the dictionary. Is it necessary to finish the topics according to the schedule? Yeah, I mean, it'll be, it's important to do it. So when you assess your students, they know what they need to be assessed, and you don't get into trouble because you can say, okay, this will be your test, and they are like, but we haven't seen this topic. So it's better to continue to follow the order and the program. Okay, my student work offline, so they can send me the writings. Okay, in that case, you can ask them to write it in papers, not to collect all of them at it, because in each class to have, I don't know, 30, 40 writing assignments, but you can, select from few students, some of them, but they do need to write. That's the important thing, that they, not because it's offline, they cannot do it. No, we need to look for ways of making them work. So just pick 5 of them, and then you assess those things out of class, and the next class you give it back. Suggestion, please. The students do the first try, fail the exam, then check the answers and sit the exam again. At the end, might get 100, and they decided on their progress, recorded on their progress. Yeah, we need to see, that they're doing the test. If it's the first time, just make sure that they go back to explore and practice. When you are in the session with them in the lab, please monitor their work, monitor what they're doing. Ask sometimes who has finished the test. Please raise your hand. You go, you check and see the score. So you can tell them, okay, just go to explore and do it again. Monitoring in the lab is very, very important, because, students only, they want to complete, but we want them to learn. So, and they need to internalize that and work on that, and not only to see that they pass, but they learn. Okay. Another question. Con el sistema de enseñanza no se da la importancia a los signos gramaticales y cómo solucionamos. Ok. En gramática, esta la contesto en español porque está en español. Ustedes pueden redireccionar a sus estudiantes, darles material extra de gramática para que ellos puedan darle importancia a algunas cosas que ustedes en clase tal vez no lo puedan hacer. Sin embargo, en las sesiones de aprendizaje que ustedes tienen del Computer Lab, que es donde se trabaja gramática específicamente, la plataforma tiene las explicaciones gramaticales. Entonces, siempre que los estudiantes vayan a Explore y vean la explicación gramatical de cada parte. Si ustedes quieren darles también a veces enlaces o material adicional, ellos pueden buscarlo, ustedes les llevan las fotocopias para que ellos lean en cosas de, por ejemplo, puntuación, de palabras que van en plurales, singulares, en mayúsculas, en minúsculas, and so on. How can I help some weak students? Okay, Anna. First of all, you need to see which students are weak on what. All right, you need to identify the skills that you need to work on. Then you can make them in groups, all right, and provide them with material for them to work. As I said, each skill has a way of working for specific students, for weak students, for deaf students. So we will need another session, another webinar to cover this topic because it's very extensive. But for example, if a student or if I have a group of weak students in listening, I cannot pretend that they will understand the text and audio, from the beginning at the end. So you can start by making them listen to the whole thing, to grab some words, few words. Also, it's important for you to do pre-warm activities, like when you give them key vocabulary. And then, once they listen to the audio, they can identify some of those words. When you are doing that, when your students identify words, they feel motivated and they feel that they can do it. So it's steps. You need to start with small steps, with words, then fragments, then paragraphs, and then the whole thing. For them, when they listen, they can understand. And always you need to check and ask them, about what they're listening. So it has to do with that. Okay, few more questions and then we finish because it's it's time. One student can't access the platform and I don't know his progress. Okay, in this case, Erica, you need to check the username, and okay, if you don't have access to that information, you can call the call center and ask them for the username and password of the student. Make sure that he's registered on the platform and then give him that information so he can start working on the platform. Once you know and you're sure that he has access to, you can start looking at the progress. All right. What else? On the other hand, almost finished the unit. Many questions here. On the other hand, I don't know which hand was before, so some make it sound good that they finish and almost finish all the units. I don't understand. I'm sorry, but I missed the first part of this question, so I move up to another one. You have, Anna, if you're referring to students that finish faster than the other students, You can always use parts of the platform, for example, the community site, and ask them to read or to do activities from there, right? And make sure that they understand everything that they're studying, that they're not completing just to complete something that they're learning. And you also, in the sessions, you know, in your lesson plans, you have a closure activity. So when students finish first and you see that they finish well, that the scores was good, that they do not need extra practice because the topic was well learned, and now they need to practice. So you can put them together in groups, in pairs, and make them do something else, okay? If in the closure activity it says, for example, write a dialogue, make them write a longer dialogue, all right? And just keep them motivated, communicating, working together in pairs. Okay. Okay, the thing is that please try to write the questions not in parts, but the same thing. The student needs more practice in the classroom. Okay, in the classroom you have your lesson plans and you have, you know, the time specified for each session. So make sure that in the lab the student is doing what he's supposed to do, because in the lab he is expanding. Okay, there was a topic that was presented in the face-to-face session. Now he's in the lab. In the lab he's supposed to do more, to explore, to learn, to answer his questions, to check his mistakes and check them and learn from that. So in the face-to-face he will be ready to practice, okay? And make sure that the quantity of activities that you have is relevant and it's actually real to your classroom, because some of the students work faster, some work slower, so you need to deal with that to see how many questions or how many activities do you want to give them. Also, just keeping in mind the objectives of that class. All right. Okay, it's okay, Anna, it's fine. All right, let's see two more, and I think we have to go. Okay. Workbook. How much time dedicate in class to the workbook? We use the workbook especially to check homework. So you need to think when you're planning your session. You need to think that how much time you will spend on the starting activity and checking homework. Sometimes checking homework, you just want to check the communicative activities. If there is a dialogue, you can make them read the dialogue. If it has to do with the computer lesson, and you know, maybe you can do it when you're in the lab. You need to see how your students work and make some changes. All right. How to do when the student has a slow progress. Okay. When your student has low progress and you see that maybe the time in the lab session is not enough for him, you need to see, especially it's usually with some skills. It's not all of them, because students are good at certain things. So you need to look at the report, the report, and see if it's something that continuously happens. For example, if I have a student that listening, he doesn't manage to complete almost all the listening activities, then I need to give him some skills, some tools, some ideas on how to work on listening. For example, he doesn't know and he's trying and trying the whole audio several times, and it's not the way that he should be working. For example, you should tell him, okay, you're gonna start by listening to the whole thing, but then you will listen to the whole audio while you read. Then do fragments. Okay, you need to plan, to give them steps on how to work on the platform. It's not only, okay, here we are in the lab, access the program and do what we need to cover these two lessons today from this unit. No, if you see that your students are struggling, write a map. Yeah, put some steps. First, listen to the audio. Second, listen and read. Third, listen to few fragments. Something like that. Give them steps. And the last one, yes, step by step, Roxana. That's good. Okay. Again, Edith. She's saying that she teaches 4th grade, and when she's checking her report, some students are missing. They don't attend the class. They haven't attended the class this year. She doesn't know them. Maybe, yes, they are in another school. So this is something that you can, contact the call center. I'm gonna give you here again to put the slide here so you can write the phone number. And for all those things, you had a student that hasn't shown up. So please call and make sure that he's in that school or if he's in a different school. So here you have the number. So please contact them and ask them those questions. So, yeah, thank you, Gloria. Okay, so I'm gonna disable now the chat because it's time for us to leave. But again, it has been a pleasure to work with you and to have this webinar with you, with your participation, sharing your experiences. We learn from that, and this is a great opportunity for everyone, including myself, to learn from you and to share our experiences. So thank you very much, and well, have a good evening, night already, and well, see you next. Bye bye. I'm gonna enable the chat so you can say bye to everyone. I will leave it for a few minutes if you want. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. You also have a good evening. And until next time, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, because I guess we were not talking this year, so enjoy yourself. Okay, Walter, bye-bye. Good night.